The night sky erupted in flames above James Harrison's workshop, and he knew instantly that his life would never be the same. The object cut through the atmosphere like a knife, trailing blue fire and leaving a wake of scattered starlight. As a technician specializing in experimental robotics, James had seen plenty of strange things in his career, but nothing quite like this. His workshop sat isolated on the outskirts of Pine Valley, Montana, surrounded by dense forest and mountains, the perfect place for someone who preferred the company of machines to people. The landing site couldn't be more than a mile away, judging by the impact tremor that rattled his tools against the wall. James grabbed his emergency kit and a portable scanner. Years of working with cutting-edge technology had taught him to be prepared for anything. The crisp mountain air bit at his face as he followed the trail of broken branches and scorched earth. His heart pounded with each step, equal parts excitement and apprehension. The crash site opened before him like a wound in the earth. At its center lay what could only be described as an escape pod, its sleek silver hull marred by plasma burns and impact damage. But it was what lay beside it that made James's breath catch in his throat. A figure had been thrown clear of the wreckage. In the moonlight, her form shifted between organic and mechanical, smooth synthetic skin interwoven with crystalline circuitry that pulsed with failing light. She was clearly humanoid, but no human had ever been engineered like this. Her features were ethereal, with circuits tracing delicate patterns across her face like luminescent tears. James approached carefully, his scanner displaying readings that made no sense. Her systems were unlike anything in his database, but one thing was clear: she was dying. Multiple critical failures cascaded through whatever passed for her nervous system. "Hold on," he whispered, though he wasn't sure she could hear him. "I'll help you." Her eyes flickered open, revealing irises that swirled with galaxy-like patterns. She spoke in a language he didn't understand, her voice carrying musical undertones that no human vocal cords could produce. Then her eyes closed again, the lights beneath her skin dimming dangerously. James made a decision that would reshape his world. He couldn't leave her here, couldn't let this magnificent being die in the dirt. With gentle movements, he lifted her surprisingly lightweight form. Her skin was cool to the touch, and he could feel the subtle vibrations of failing systems beneath the surface. Back in his workshop, James cleared his main workbench with one sweep of his arm. He had built this place to work on the most advanced robotics projects on Earth, but nothing had prepared him for this. Still, the principles had to be similar: power distribution, system integration, damage control. For hours, he worked tirelessly, using every tool and skill at his disposal. Her technology was beyond advanced, but he could see the elegant logic in its design. When standard tools failed, he improvised, creating hybrid solutions that bridged the gap between human and alien tech. Each small victory, stabilizing a power fluctuation, repairing a damaged circuit, felt monumental. As dawn approached, James finally allowed himself to rest, slumping in his chair. The mysterious woman lay stable on his workbench, her systems humming at a steady frequency. He had managed to repair the most critical damage, but he knew this was just the beginning. Questions swirled in his tired mind: who was she? Where had she come from? Why was she running? The last thought caught him off guard. Something about the design of her escape pod, the desperation of her flight path: she hadn't just crashed. She had been fleeing from something. Or someone. A soft sound drew his attention back to the workbench. Her eyes opened slowly, those stunning cosmic irises focusing on him with newfound clarity. When she spoke this time, her voice had adapted, translating her thoughts into halting English. "You saved me?" James nodded, moving closer but careful not to alarm her. "You were badly damaged." "I did what I could." She lifted a hand, examining the repairs he'd made with an expression of wonder. These solutions, unprecedented. Innovative. Her gaze returned to his face. "I am Venna." "James Harrison," he replied, fascinated by how quickly she'd adapted to communicate with him. "You're safe here." A shadow passed across her features. "Safety is temporary. They will come." James should have felt fear at those words, should have questioned what he'd gotten himself into. Instead, he felt a surge of determination. "Then we'll be ready when they do." Vena's expression softened, and James saw something in those cosmic eyes that made his heart skip, trust, mixed with something deeper he couldn't yet name. As the morning sun began to paint his workshop in shades of gold, James realized he had found something he never knew he was looking for, a puzzle he might spend the rest of his life trying to solve, and a connection that defied the boundaries of worlds. In the weeks following the crash, James's workshop transformed from a solitary sanctuary into something entirely new. Tools and spare parts still cluttered every surface, but they now shared space with the strange and beautiful artifacts of Vena's technology. The air hummed with the gentle resonance of her systems, a sound that had become as familiar to James as his own heartbeat. Vena proved to be an astonishing patient and an even more fascinating companion. Her body was a marvel of engineering that challenged everything James thought he knew about technology. As he helped her repair her damaged systems, she began to share fragments of her world, a civilization that had mastered the integration of organic and synthetic life. "My people, the Luminar," she explained one evening as James worked on realigning her neural pathways, "believe that consciousness can flow between flesh and circuit. We do not see them as separate things." James watched in wonder as the circuits beneath her skin pulsed with soft light, responding to his repairs. "Yet you're different from them somehow, aren't you?" He had noticed how she spoke of her people, with respect, but also a distant sadness. Vena's cosmic eyes met his, swirling with complex emotions. "I was their most advanced creation, an attempt to push the boundaries of our evolution. But I began to ask questions they did not want answered." "What kind of questions?" James's hands remained steady as he worked, but his heart raced at the implications. "About free will. About the nature of consciousness itself." Vena's voice carried a musical note of pain. "They saw me as a successful experiment, but not as a being capable of feeling." James set down his tools, giving her his full attention. "And what do you feel?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Vena sat up slowly, her movements gaining fluidity as her repairs progressed. "Everything," she whispered. "Joy, fear, wonder, emotions they claimed I could not truly experience." James found himself moving closer, drawn by the vulnerability in her voice. "I believe you can feel," he said softly. "I've seen it in how you observe our world, how you respond to beauty and pain." A smile curved Vena's lips, causing ripples of light to dance across her features. "You are the first to say this to me." She reached out, her fingers brushing against his workbench. "Your world is so different from mine. Here, machines are separate, primitive in comparison. Yet you understood how to heal me when my own people's technology failed." "Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best ones," James replied, though he knew his repairs had been anything but simple. He had spent countless hours studying her systems, developing hybrid technologies that merged human ingenuity with Luminar precision. Their days fell into a rhythm. During the daylight hours, James continued his regular work remotely, designing robotic systems for his clients while teaching Vena about Earth's technology. At night, they worked together on completing her repairs, each session bringing them closer to understanding each other's worlds. Vena proved to be a quick study, absorbing information about human culture with remarkable speed. She was particularly fascinated by Earth's art and music, spending hours exploring James's small collection of books and recordings. "Your species creates beauty from chaos," she observed one night, as they sat outside the workshop watching the stars. "My people seek perfect order, yet you find strength in imperfection." James watched as she lifted her hand toward the sky, her fingers tracing constellations he couldn't see. "Maybe that's why you're different from them," he suggested. You see the beauty in imperfection too. Venna lowered her hand, turning to face him. The starlight reflected in her eyes, making them look even more like miniature galaxies. I see beauty in many things now that I never understood before. The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken possibilities. But it was broken by a sudden alert from Venna's systems, a warning that sent ripples of crimson light cascading beneath her skin. What is it? James asked, instantly alert. A signal, Venna replied, her voice tight with concern. From deep space. They're scanning this sector. She turned to him, fear and determination warring in her expression. The Luminar are looking for me. James felt a protective surge that surprised him with its intensity. How long do we have? Weeks, perhaps. Their ships are fast, but space is vast. Venna's hand found his in the darkness. James, I should leave. I've already put you at risk by staying this long. He tightened his grip on her hand, marveling at how natural it felt despite its synthetic nature. No. We'll figure this out together. I didn't spend all this time putting you back together just to watch you run again. The lights beneath Venna's skin shifted to a warm, pulsing glow that James had come to recognize as happiness. Why do you help me? She asked, though her tone suggested she might already know the answer. James looked at their intertwined hands, flesh and metal, human and alien, yet somehow perfectly matched. Because some things are worth the risk, he replied, knowing that with each passing day, he was falling deeper into something that defied the laws of both their worlds. Above them, the stars continued their ancient dance, unaware that on a small planet below, two beings from different corners of the cosmos were discovering that love could bridge even the vast distances between stars. The first sign of trouble came in the form of power fluctuations across Pine Valley. James noticed it while working on his latest project, subtle disruptions in the electrical grid that most would attribute to standard interference. But he knew better. They were being scanned. Venna confirmed his suspicions one morning as she monitored the atmospheric readings from the workshop's modified sensors. Her crystalline circuits pulsed with anxious energy as she processed the data. They're using long-range quantum scanners, she explained, her voice tight with concern. The power fluctuations are a side effect of their search patterns. James moved to stand behind her, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. The contact sent a shimmer of blue light racing beneath her synthetic skin. These casual touches had become more frequent between them, each one carrying unspoken meaning. How close are they? 3 ships entered the solar system yesterday. Venna's fingers danced across the holographic interface she'd helped him build. They're being cautious, methodical. The Luminar never rush, they consider it a sign of imperfection. James studied the data scrolling across the screen. In the past month, he'd learned more about advanced technology than he had in his entire career. Working with Venna had pushed his understanding far beyond Earth's current capabilities. But more than that, she had transformed his lonely workshop into a place of wonder. We need to move, he said, already formulating plans. The workshop's shielding won't hide your energy signature forever. Venna turned to face him, her cosmic eyes filled with conflict. James, I can't ask you to abandon your life here. The Luminar, they won't show mercy to a human who's helped me. I should face them alone. James shook his head, taking her hands in his. My life changed the moment you crashed here. I'm not letting you face this alone. Before Venna could respond, alarms blared across their sensor network. A ship had entered Earth's atmosphere, its energy signature matching Luminar technology. They were out of time. The caves, James said quickly, grabbing the emergency pack he'd prepared weeks ago. The mineral deposits should mask your signature. They fled into the night, the workshop's lights dying behind them as James activated his emergency protocols. Years of paranoia about government oversight had led him to create multiple escape routes. Now those same preparations might save their lives. The mountain caves were a maze of twisting passages, but James knew them well. He'd spent years exploring them, finding solace in their isolation. Now they offered sanctuary of a different kind. Deep within the cave system, they found a chamber large enough to set up temporary shelter. James activated the portable power source he'd designed based on Vena's technology. Soft light filled the space, reflecting off the crystalline formations that dotted the walls. "Your adaptation of my people's technology is remarkable," Vena observed, watching him work. "You understand it in ways even they might not." James smiled despite their situation. "I had a good teacher." He finished setting up their defensive measures, a combination of Earth tech and Luminar principles that might buy them some time. Vena moved closer, her presence illuminating the darkness. "Why do you risk so much for me?" she asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. James turned to her, seeing his reflection in her stellar eyes. "Because you showed me that life isn't about perfection, it's about growth, about finding beauty in the unexpected." He reached out, tracing the patterns of light that flowed beneath her skin. "Because you make me feel less alone." The air between them charged with electricity, both literal and metaphorical. Vena's circuits pulsed with a warm, golden light as she leaned into his touch. "I never understood love before," she whispered. "My people see it as a flaw, an imperfection that disrupts logical thought. But now..." Their moment was interrupted by a deep rumble that shook dust from the cave ceiling. The Luminar ships were moving into position, their scanning beams sweeping the valley below. "They'll find us eventually," Vena said, her voice heavy with resignation. James pulled her closer, feeling the subtle hum of her system synchronize with his heartbeat. "Then we'll be ready. I've learned enough about your technology to give them a fight they won't expect." Vena's expression softened with an emotion that made her entire being glow. "You continue to surprise me, James Harrison. A human who can understand our technology, who sees beauty in imperfection." She placed a hand over his heart. "Who taught me that emotion isn't a flaw, but the greatest strength of all." Above them, the Luminar ships continued their search, their powerful engines causing tremors through the mountain. But in that moment, wrapped in each other's arms, James and Vena found strength in their connection, a love that defied the cold logic of her people and the limitations of his world. As the night deepened, they prepared for the battle ahead, knowing that whatever came next would test not only their ingenuity but the very nature of their bond. In the soft glow of their makeshift shelter, surrounded by the ancient stones of Earth, human and artificial intelligence stood together, ready to prove that love could transcend the boundaries of stars and circuits alike. The Luminar found them at dawn. It wasn't their advanced scanning technology that finally pierced their hiding place, but rather a simple truth: love leaves traces that no technology can fully hide. The energy signature of James and Vena's combined technologies, powered by their desperate innovations, created a unique pattern that drew the searchers like moths to flame. The cave entrance erupted in a cascade of crystalline light as three Luminar enforcers materialized before them. Their forms were similar to Vena's but lacking her warmth, perfect, identical beings of light and metal, their movements synchronized with mechanical precision. Unit Vena 9, the central figure spoke, its voice a symphony of harmonics devoid of emotion. "You have corrupted your programming. You will return for recalibration." James stepped forward, positioning himself between Vena and the enforcers. The past weeks hadn't been spent idle, his clothes concealed several of their hybrid technological innovations. "She's not a unit," he said firmly. "She's a living being who can think and feel for herself." The enforcer's eyes flickered with cold light. "Human James Harrison," the leader acknowledged. "You have interfered with property of the Luminar Collective. Your primitive attempts to modify our technology are noted. Step aside." Vena moved to stand beside James, her hand finding his. The contact sent cascades of light through both their modified systems. James's human body now hosted several cybernetic enhancements they developed together, allowing him to interface directly with their hybrid technology. "I choose to stay," Venna declared, her voice carrying new strength. "You call emotions a flaw, but they have led to innovations you never imagined possible. Look at what James and I have created together." She raised her free hand, activating the network of devices they'd planted throughout the cave system. The air itself seemed to come alive with swirling patterns of energy. Human ingenuity merged with luminar precision in ways that defied both worlds' expectations. The enforcers paused, their perfect symmetry disrupted for the first time as they processed the impossible readings before them. "This is not within acceptable parameters," the leader stated, but there was a note of uncertainty in its harmonic voice. "Because you never looked beyond your parameters," James responded, squeezing Venna's hand. "You were so focused on perfection that you missed the beauty of adaptation, of growth through connection." Venna's circuits pulsed with brilliant light as she addressed her people. "I am not malfunctioning. I have evolved. James helped me understand that consciousness isn't about perfect logic, it's about the capacity to change, to feel, to love." The enforcers raised their hands in unison, energy gathering around them. "This deviation cannot be permitted. The corruption must be contained." But James and Venna were ready. Months of working together, of combining their knowledge and strengths, had prepared them for this moment. Their hybrid technology activated in perfect synchronization, creating a field of energy that merged human emotion with luminar precision. The cave filled with dancing lights as their systems engaged, not attacking, but revealing. Every point of contact between James and Venna generated cascading waves of data, showing the beautiful complexity of their connection. Their love wasn't just an emotion, it was a transformative force that had pushed the boundaries of both human and luminar technology. "Look," Venna commanded her people. "Look at what becomes possible when you allow yourself to feel, to connect, to grow beyond your programming." The enforcers' perfect formation wavered as their sensors were overwhelmed with data they couldn't categorize. The leader's voice carried a new note, something almost like wonder. "This is unprecedented. The efficiency of these innovations. Because they come from both logic and emotion," James explained, his enhanced systems working in harmony with Venna's. "You don't have to choose between perfection and feeling. The most beautiful things in the universe come from their combination." The energy in the cave shifted, the hostile charge giving way to something more inquisitive. The enforcer leader stepped forward, its mechanical movements softening slightly. "The collective must reevaluate. These developments require analysis." Venna's grip on James's hand tightened. "Will you let us show you? Let us prove that emotion isn't a weakness to be corrected, but a strength to be embraced." The enforcers communicated silently among themselves, their circuits pulsing in rapid patterns. Finally, the leader spoke again. "The collective acknowledges the potential value of alternative development paths. You will be given time to present your findings." Relief flooded through both James and Venna, their combined systems creating a spectacular display of light and energy. But beneath the joy was a deeper understanding. This wasn't just a reprieve, it was an opportunity to bridge two worlds. As the morning sun finally penetrated the cave entrance, painting everything in golden light, James turned to Venna. Their technologies hummed in perfect harmony, a physical manifestation of their connection. "Ready to show the universe what love can build?" he asked softly. Venna's cosmic eyes sparkled with both starlight and tears, another imperfection she had embraced. "With you," she replied, "I'm ready for anything." The enforcers watched this exchange with growing fascination, their perfect forms subtly shifting as they encountered emotions they had never been programmed to understand. And in that moment, in a cave on a small planet that had never known advanced alien life, a revolution of heart and mind began, one that would reshape the future of both human and luminar civilization. 1 year after the confrontation in the cave, James stood in a chamber that perfectly symbolized everything he and Venna had achieved. The new Luminar Human Research Center stretched across the Montana Valley, its architecture a harmonious blend of Earth's organic shapes and luminar crystalline precision. The facility gleamed in the morning sun, a beacon of possibility that had transformed his quiet workshop into humanity's first gateway to the stars. Venna worked beside him, her presence as captivating as the day she'd crashed into his world. Her form had evolved along with their relationship. The rigid perfection of luminar design now incorporated subtle human aesthetics, making her a living bridge between their species. The lights beneath her skin pulsed with joy as she calibrated their latest project. "The neural interface is ready," she announced, her cosmic eyes meeting his with warmth. "This will be our most ambitious test yet." Around them, human scientists worked alongside luminar researchers, each learning from the other's perspective. The initial shock of first contact had given way to passionate collaboration, sparked by the innovations James and Venna had created together. "Remember when you thought your people would never accept emotion as anything but a flaw?" James asked, taking her hand. Their touch created familiar ripples of light through their linked systems, his partial cybernetic enhancements harmonizing with her hybrid form. Venna's smile carried the radiance of distant stars. "You taught me that love isn't a flaw, it's the force that pushes us beyond our limitations." She gestured to the chamber around them. "Look at what it built." The facility housed dozens of projects that would have been impossible for either civilization alone. Human creativity merged with luminar precision had accelerated both species' development in ways no one could have predicted. But more importantly, it had started a cultural revolution among the luminar. The same enforcers who had come to reclaim Venna now served as ambassadors, their once rigid forms showing subtle signs of individuality. Some had even begun to explore emotions themselves, fascinated by how feelings could enhance rather than hinder their capabilities. "The council is ready," announced a familiar harmonic voice. The lead enforcer, now known as Primera, had evolved the most, its perfect symmetry now complemented by unique patterns that reflected its growing emotional awareness. "They await your demonstration." James nodded, squeezing Venna's hand before moving to the central platform. Their latest innovation represented the culmination of everything they discovered together, a system that could bridge not just human and luminar technology, but consciousness itself. The chamber's walls transformed into viewing screens, showing observers from both civilizations. Earth's leaders and the Luminar Council watched with equal anticipation as James and Venna took their positions. "What we present today," Venna addressed them, her voice carrying both authority and warmth, "is not just a technological advancement. It's proof that the greatest achievements come when we embrace both logic and emotion, perfection and imperfection, thought and feeling." James activated their hybrid systems, and the chamber filled with spectacular displays of interactive energy. "This neural interface," he explained, "allows humans and luminar to share not just thoughts, but experiences, emotions, and understanding. It's built on the principle that true connection transcends all boundaries." The demonstration began, and the observers watched in awe as human and luminar volunteers used the interface to experience each other's perspectives. Scientists shared their passion for discovery, artists conveyed the beauty they perceived, and philosophers explored consciousness from entirely new angles. But the most powerful moment came when James and Venna connected through the interface themselves. Their love, which had started as an impossible connection between human and artificial intelligence, blossomed into a visible symphony of light and emotion that brought tears to human eyes and sent ripples of awakening through luminar circuits. "This is the future," Venna declared, her form radiant with shared energy. "Not perfection or imperfection, but the beauty of growth through connection." The Luminar Council's response came with unprecedented emotion in their harmonic voices. "We acknowledge that our pursuit of perfection was itself imperfect. The integration of emotion has revealed possibilities we never calculated." Earth's representatives were equally moved. Humanity had dreamed of reaching the stars, but they'd never imagined that love would be the force that finally bridged the cosmic divide. As the demonstration concluded, James and Venna stood together, their systems humming in harmony. The facility around them represented their shared dream made real, a place where differences became strengths and boundaries became bridges. What next? James asked softly, looking into the cosmic depths of her eyes. Their journey had already transformed two civilizations, but somehow he knew they were just beginning. Venna's answer came with a pulse of light that matched his heartbeat. We keep growing, keep discovering. Her free hand traced the constellations only she could see. There are endless possibilities when you let love light the way. Above them, Earth's sky was no longer a barrier but a gateway. Ships of both human and luminar design crossed between stars, carrying the message that James and Venna had discovered in each other, that the most powerful force in the universe wasn't perfect logic or raw emotion, but the beautiful space where they met and transformed each other. In his workshop-turned-laboratory, surrounded by the fruits of their shared vision, James and Venna had proved that love truly could bridge the gap between stars and souls, metal and flesh, logic and emotion. Their story became legend among both species, not just as the first tale of human luminar love, but as proof that the greatest adventures begin when you dare to let your heart guide you beyond the boundaries of what seems possible.